The misunderstanding with the Holy Grail Knight seems to have been taken care of, except for maybe one person, and the interactions this chapter are actually pretty funny and wholesome, while also giving us some new things in regards to Tristan that has been brought up by a lot of people, but also with Gawain utilizing her abilities in a much different way, giving her a brand new form, which I'm very excited to talk about. Not to mention the cliffhanger at the end of this chapter, setting up potential conflict, while also potentially just being a literal fake out at the end of the chapter, which seems very likely. But either way, this is a fun chapter and I cannot wait to jump right into things. But before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to see more of me outside this channel, go and check out my second channel, GW Comics, where I talk about comic books. Very DC focused right now, but I'm trying to keep things relatively evened out between a lot of the different publishers. I got some stuff planned in the future, so look forward to that. Go and check it out in the description down below and in the title card whenever you get the chance. It's a passion project. I would really appreciate if you guys go and check it out when you have the opportunity. Now then, let's just jump straight into the chapter. Chapter 243 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Knights Perplexed. And the cover image is a tease of Papa Percival. Yes, we get a glimpse from the back of Percival as an adult, or more so of an adult, when Cardiez and Lohengrin are toddlers. And it's honestly one of the most wholesome images I have seen. Percival was raised by his grandfather, and having him be a dad to two kids does feel like a natural progression for him. And if you zoom in close enough, you can kind of glean a bit from what his beard could potentially look like. So, really nice cover image, teasing us with the potential glimpse into the future of what we'll see for the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, and how that could lead us into the future of the story, because we are still incredibly uncertain as to what the hell is even going on right now. But the actual chapter begins right after the end of the previous, where after Ysaye manages to punch Tristan in the face and does nothing to him because Tristan goes Demon Mark mode, Tristan puts Bell to ass and basically punches him straight into the ground with a massive punch. And a pretty interesting detail is that Tristan is actually still in goddess mode while having his demon mark active. So what I think this is, I don't know if this is like this isn't really a form change in a way, kind of like a nice middle ground, because usually when Tristan uses his demon powers, he goes full demon right off the bat. We saw this in the previous arc every single time. So what I think this is doing is showcasing the fruits of his training with Meliodas, where he is focusing his demon powers in a different way so that he has his goddess powers used in a way to help keep him under control. That could be the case, or Nakama just forgot to draw the demon wings for Tristan at this point. Who knows? But either way, it's a really nice showcase outside of just having him having one goddess eye and one demon eye, and basically him being whole half and half, as he usually is when he tries using both powers at the same time. This feels like a much more visually better direction in my opinion, but hey, that could just be me. We might get a different form later down the road. Tristan ends up tasking him if he can stop making up excuses to pick a fight with him, and that if he keeps trying to fight him, he's not going to show any mercy. But Ysaye then says that it has to be him, the mark on your forehead. It's true dark force. You showed it to me just once after I kept begging you to. As he lumps over and manages to straighten himself up, he says, even now, it's etched deep into my skull. With Tristan wondering what he means, Ysaye, with tears in his eyes, says, it's you. You really are Tristan. After hearing that, Tristan disarms his demon mode and just with a sigh of relief says, okay, you finally see now. And then Ysaye manages to go and hug Tristan and calls him father, to Tristan's confusion. Now, while this is a funny yet wholesome moment for Ysaye and a confusing one for Tristan, the way he reacted to Tristan saying it's really you and then hugs him and also saying that he only saw Tristan's demon force once implies a couple of things, because I saw a glimpse of it in the Discord server for the Four Knights of the Apocalypse when the chapter officially came out, and people were saying that this might be confirmation that Tristan somehow dies in the future. Obviously, Tristan dying in the future is a very popular theory ever since the Grail Knights made their appearance a couple of chapters ago. And with the dialogue, it strongly implies that, especially since in Arthurian legend, Tristan's son is effectively like raised by a fairy in Arthurian legend, and he doesn't know his parents. So in this iteration, he's definitely known his father for a bit. And it seems like Tristan has taken a bit of a more belt-to-ass method of teaching his son not to take things for granted, because by ysaye basically saying he has that demon power engraved in his skull means that when Tristan revealed it to him, Tristan just punched him in the face and probably injured him so badly. Like, that is what the strong implication is from that instance. But also, the tears in his eyes seeing Tristan and just being like, it's really you, and hugging him strongly implies that he has not seen his father in years, which could really mean that Tristan is dead at some point in the future, and only really raise his son up to a specific point in time. And could also show how his son isn't really like taking the powers of his demon side more seriously and the weight behind it, as I discussed in the previous chapter. So that is an interesting thing to go about, and I am definitely curious to see what the glimpse into the future could end up being. But we have to cut to the Battle of Mages, as Gawain and Llywarch are battling in the skies, clashing with magical lightning, as off in the distance we actually see Lancelot and Galahad are still just boxing at the end. Gawain keeps trying to chant, but is interrupted completely every single time by Llywarch. And Llywarch's starting to get annoying, just telling Gawain to die already. The mask that she has a strict time limit, so she really wants to get this over with. Gawain goes buff mode to go and try and overpower her with physical force. But Llywarch keeps dodging out of the way incredibly quickly, and being very cocky, obviously taking a bit after her mother in some instances. But she says that what she has are the Wind Demon Arms, a magical item that greatly increases her speed to go as fast as the wind. And now Gawain ends up saying more of that annoying magic junk, but this actually annoys Llywarch, as she just says the mask and the gloves were made by her mother out of love so that she could be protected. And she's insulted that they're being called junk, saying that Gawain is going to pay for this. After a brief pause, Gawain has a very tender smile, saying, "You got a good mom. Let me apologize for calling that junk then. I'm sorry." But she grasps her fist, saying that her name is Gawain of the Fornits the Apocalypse. By that name, I am not going to lose to you. As she keeps lunging towards Llywarch, but Llywarch keeps dodging out of the way, as she even says, "Those thick muscles of yours will never catch up with me, you faker." But instead, in an instant, Llywarch is kicked from behind, losing her cloak, and in confusion, she's not entirely sure what just happened. Gawain flexes her wrists, says, "If firm, solid muscles aren't enough to catch up to you, I'll just switch to lithe, supple muscle for more responsiveness." And Gawain appears on the opposite side in a flash right next to Llywarch, as she then hits her with a barrage of punches as she chants at the exact same time, unleashing with one punch an explosive blow, channeling explosive magic into her fist, and lunges Llywarch back, breaking and cracking her mask, as she's just utterly befuddled by the sheer strength that was just displayed. And as she looks up, we see Gawain in a brand new form, as she tells Llywarch that it's game over. And now, as you all probably saw by this image, yeah, Gawain looks practically identical to Merlin, which, I mean, yeah, all the four knights, save for Percival, look pretty much identical to their parents in some way, shape, or form. But Gawain did have that sense of like, okay, you couldn't really tell in terms of the actual identification that she is Merlin's child just by look alone. But now with this transformation, it is 100% one-to-one. Say with maybe a bit of a slight difference with how she's presented, and also Escanor's boots and belt. So we got that. But either way, really cool, and even though she does look very similar to Merlin, there is enough differences just subtly that you can tell it isn't Merlin at all. So that's really nice. Helps at least differentiate Gawain from Merlin in this aspect. But what we saw from this is Gawain figuring out a new way to utilize her power of Dawn to be a bit more strategic, but also balance out her own weaknesses for specific battles. Hey, and heck, Gawain ends up saying this verbatim, saying that Llywarch did rely a lot on those magic tools, but if Gawain can force her into close combat without giving her time to chant in order to cast spells or even escape, she has all the time she wants to chant while attacking her. And Gawain just straight up calls this the more hyper-aggressive approach, and she has Llywarch to thank for this. And honestly, this is a really nice way to help give Gawain a cover for some of her weaknesses, because in the previous arc, we learned, and in between when she was talking to Merlin, one of Gawain's main weaknesses as a sorcerer, as a magic user, was the time to cast spells. That was something that Worldane managed to outdo with her in spades, especially in chaos form, being able to cast multiple high-level spells that would require long-ass chants, like back to back. Not only that, but the fact that Gawain, even in muscle form, isn't incredibly fast in some instances, this also covers for the speed loss in terms of the gain in large muscle mass. So we are getting more of a balancing of Gawain's two sides. By having this more Merlin-esque appearance, let's just call it, Gawain has a lot of speed to maneuver around, but she still has like the muscle, enough physical strength from the power of Dawn to deal actual close quarters combat damage to the people that she's fighting, and by doing so, she can maintain focus from that, and be as quick as possible. She can still chant while she's in close combat. That is something that she was having a hard time doing in her buff form, and thus made it harder for her to chant at the same time because a lot of her focus and power was going to maintaining the buff form. So this is a nice middle ground that I am very glad to see, because outside 80% form in the tournament, we didn't really get too much in terms of like a differentiation on Gawain's own growth in comparison to the other 4 knights. Tristan had longer time in demon mode and better control, and Percival has insane life spirit control to the point where he probably kills someone with just a thought and a phrase. Lancelot's Lancelot. Gawain didn't have really much in terms of like actual change in terms of how she approaches most of her fights. We did see that more so in her fight against Balin, but now we're seeing this done a lot better through this form in this one instance. And I'm curious to see if this is going to be her default mode from now on, or this will be a default combat mode she will be in when she wants to have, close quarters combat to an extent, while also being able to be fast enough to avoid blows and chant for her bigger spells. That is something that I am curious about, and I am really, really excited to see where this can go. Because Gawain is still like my third favorite character in this entire manga, so I am very curious to see how this goes, and I am glad that she's getting a more visible power-up in this way, utilizing her strengths and weaknesses in a very fun way. Now back to the actual events of the chapter after my Yapsh session. Gawain, after saying this to Llywarch is in disbelief as she says that, oh, you're not muscle-bound freak, basically, and you're no longer looking like a little girl. It's really you. And Gawain, giving her classic trademark pose and just overconfident smile, says, finally admitting it, huh? Yes, I am the master of the sun, Gawain, but then she gets interrupted by Llywarch as she calls her Maman. I guess Llywarch is French in this universe, which is funny. But yeah, she grabs onto Gawain's hand as Gawain is confused by her basically calling her mom, as she just shouts out in very quick succession, why haven't you told me this from the start that it was you? Coming along like this to watch over me? You are so overprotective. And also, why do you look younger than usual? As Gawain just shouts out, how dare you presume that I'm 18? But Llywarch just grabs on and nuzzles her with just overwhelming affection, showcasing that in the future. Gawain is probably a really good mom to Llywarch, and she loves her mother that much. So honestly, that's a nice glimpse to know into the future that this is actually one of the more healthier relationships outside of Percival and his kids, which I honestly kind of love. But Gawain is honestly getting very confused and annoyed at this, as she's going out to Tristan to help her, because like, first I'm an enemy and a faker, now I'm her mother, what the hell is going on with these freaks? And Tristan is also very confused, saying, yeah, freaky is what the situation would be going by. Also, another quick tangent I just want to go by. Another thing that differentiates Gawain's design in this form from Merlin is just the immense expressiveness, because despite Merlin having, a bit more of a smile and serious tone sometimes, she kind of had more of a monotone expression half the time in Seven Deadly Sins. So Gawain being the more outspoken and expressive out of the two goes to show, just to see how the differences are between the two of them, and it will help to just not get confused her with Merlin whenever she's in this form. But yeah, now that this misunderstanding of them being fakes, at least for most of the knights, is over with, the confusion of them basically meeting their future children is definitely still there. But then Percival breaks out and cuts through the giant eel monster in the sky holding his kids, just says, hey, guess what? these guys are saying that they're my kids. And Percival just takes this information in stride. Tristan is like, he's already accepting this, with Gawain just being like, you are really too stupid to doubt anything otherwise, I'm sure of that. Honestly, Percival being the one to just believe them outright makes sense, not outside of the fact that they literally look like on and Nazians, but he could probably tell that they're his kids based off the fact that he's a life spirit and can probably tell in that aspect. So, like, he would probably be able to tell if they were telling the truth in that aspect, because you can't really fool someone who was basically just a being so connected to spirits and life itself. So, like, I genuinely think that if Percival can believe it, then I think everyone else will have to give it the benefit of the doubt. We then get this really, like, cool and awkward shot of the kids just staring on awkwardly or happily at their younger version of their parents, as the Four Knights are trying to just figure out what the heck is going on right now, because how could they... the kids are wondering how their parents are so much younger now, and the Four Knights are wondering, hey, how the heck are you our kids if we're still 18 and haven't even had families yet? Percival has 2 on the way, regardless of this fact. But then they're wondering if they just stepped place in the past, and this is Lohengrin saying this. Gawain then asks the question, do you have no memory of how this even happened? But this does jog Cardiaz's memories, and he's like, wait, actually I think I might know how we ended up in this situation. But they're interrupted by the large-scale battle of 2 literal titans fighting literally like 20 feet away, as Lancelot and Galahad are still going at it, a sword against bare fists, which puts Lancelot at a disadvantage right now against someone as seemingly as strong as Galahad. But Tristan is trying to get Lance to stop, and same with Ysaye, saying that, hey, you should probably quit right now if that guy is the real actual Lancelot. But they're not listening right now, as they're too focused on the fight to even listen to the others just telling them to stop fighting with the misunderstanding taken away. But Ysaye then says, if you know you can never beat Lancelot. He'll do more than just hurt you since this is the real one. Which implies that Lancelot is a subscriber to the School of Hard Knocks. Maybe even more so, because like, since Galahad has been stated that the only one that can beat him is his father, he probably has experienced very brutal defeats by his dad, and Lancelot seems more or less could be seen as more of a stricter parent than Bond. If I'm being honest, I can see that happening, and just teaching his son through utter like brutal combat just to not get cocky. I can see that happening in the future. But we get to see more of the actual action, with Lancelot dodging swords and even grabbing both of Galahad's hands. And as Galahad tries to kick him, Lancelot headbutts him right in the face, breaking off the rest of his face mask, as Lancelot and Galahad get some distance. With Galahad, face obscured with the panel work obviously, saying, well, guess I gotta use it. We then get a blacked out image of Lancelot, as in the next page, in a double page spread, Galahad pierces Lancelot's gut with a dark penetrate attack, as we actually get to see Lancelot cough up blood, as he then falls from the cliffside to the shock of everyone, with Galahad looking down, saying, you see, he was a faker all along. And that ends the chapter. Now, this is definitely a fake out. I don't think Lancelot is down for the count for good. He definitely blocked a bit of that blow and took it in that instance, but didn't take a actual finishing blow. Because of 2 reasons. 1, Gawain is the only one that does not seem shocked whatsoever in this instance, at least from how Nakaba drew her, because she doesn't look like shocked or concerned. She's a lot more stoic in this image, so she most likely knows that Lancelot is okay. But also, before he was hit by this attack, Lancelot seemingly was stunned. Obviously, seeing Galahad's face, since unlike the other knights, this is the first time he is seeing the face of his opponent. So, this could just be him realizing that not only A, Galahad looks like him, but has the same hair color as Guinevere. This probably threw him off, and if he is caught off guard, that gives Galahad the opening he needed to actually deal a finishing blow, at least in his perspective. Now, for all we know, like I said, this is a fake out, and Lancelot just took a bit of a hit, but is gonna jump right back up afterwards and just beat Galahad pretty soundly. But either way, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen in the next chapter, and apparently we're gonna get a color page next week, so that'll be really nice to see. But with that, everybody except for Galahad has realized that they're fighting the younger versions of their parents. The misunderstanding has been cleared up by literally 90% of the group. Just these last 2 characters need to actually reconcile and realize what the heck is going on. And then we will see, through Cardiez, who was interrupted by the literal Clash of Titans, effectively might know how they ended up here in the past in the first place. And a very big theory is when we got that first double-page color spread that gave us the full designs initially of the Holy Grail Knights, that there was a big golden framed mirror. For all we know, that might be how they got here in the first place, and that might be how they ended up in the past. Now again, I'm going to reiterate that because this is something that I keep saying almost every other review, but I'm genuinely curious and confused as to where things are going to go from here, because I literally cannot predict how the story is going to be going from this point forward. And if this finishes off well, this could add a very interesting dynamic and wrinkle for the future of the story, so we just gotta wait and see what happens. Either way, this is a good chapter. I loved it. The action was great. The implications as to what the future of the Fortnite Apocalypse could effectively be, ideas of how they are as parents, Gawain getting a new form, and Lancelot seemingly being taken out for all we know. But again, it's Lancelot. I doubt that happened. But it'd be pretty interesting if he was just given a really clean hit that he can't instantly recover from until he comes back and wins the fight. But you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. And what's more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and ensures you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. I am less than 800 away from hitting the 40k subscriber mark. We're incredibly close to hitting that. I would really like to get to that before the end of July. And also go and check out my Patreon, link in the description below. I definitely am planning to do some more Patreon exclusive content there, a monthly manga review video for a series that I can't just cover here on the channel every single week. And I'm also planning to do reaction content for some anime on there going forward sometime in mid to late July to give you guys some bonus content outside of the channel. And you'll also get access to my Patreon-only Discord server so you guys can interact with each other and me a lot more frequently. I would really appreciate you guys go check it out whenever you get the chance. But that's really all I got to say this week. Hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have an awesome day.